Welcome, dear students. In the current session, we would talk about the influences on the English language during 19th and 20th century. Well, I hope by the end of this session, you would understand what kind of influences we have in the history of English language during the period of 19th and 20th century. Well, my dear students, if we look at the circumstances during the 19th and the 20th century, from the political and social perspectives, there were significant changes that occurred. There were a lot of political and social changes that affected the course of history in English-speaking countries. However, as compared to the importance of these political and sociocultural aspects or events, when we look at language, the changes were not that significant. There was a lot of stability in the language. Going back into the history, tracing it, how it happened so. If we look at British success on the sea, in fact, Napoleonic Wars, culminating in Nelson's famous victory at Trafalgar in 1805, gave England an undisputed, unchallenged kind of, supremacy over the seas, the naval supremacy. The result of all this was that, England now had access to, a lot of areas from where money would come. It was an opening of the economic corridors. The war against Russia in Crimea in 1854, it was and the contests with princes in India had the effect of again turning England's attention towards these areas, especially towards East. On the other hand, what were the processes that were going on internally in England? If we look at them, there were certain things that were happening. First of all, the recognition of Parliament was an important step that provided a democratic basis to the country. There were revisions of the penal code, the poor laws that were established, restrictions were placed on child labor. So, step by step, gradually, through these 2 centuries, England was emerging as a more and more democratic country. There were other reforms that were taking place, especially with reference to industry. Now, what was the result of this process of, of reforms and the process of democratization? The result was decreased distance between the classes. The differences between the upper class and the lower class. That kind of what you would say traditional hierarchy that existed where, the aristocracy was more inherent. Now the barriers were being broken and the upper class and the lower class, they were coming together, they were coming closer. The lower class, the masses, they were getting opportunities. These increase in the opportunities for the masses is the significant aspect that affected the economic, social, and political scenario of the country. Along with this, the establishment of the first cheap newspaper in 1816 and of first cheap postage in 1840, it increased the availability of these resources for people. It established the kind of connectivity amongst the masses. It provided them chances to have access to connect to, all the information, all the knowledge, and actually to connect to the whole world. Alongside the improved traveling conditions, means of traveling, and means of communication, the progress that was taking place in media played an important role in influencing English language during the 19th and the 20th centuries. What was the influence or what was the effect? The effect was of uniting more closely the different parts of Britain and of spreading influence of the standard speech. The London Standard that was established, towards the end of the Middle English and the beginning of Renaissance period. Now England was the hub of, this linguistic standard. From here, now it would spread everywhere to all the other parts of the country, of the island. And, because of the means of communication, because of media, it became easier. Also, this movement was, it was coincided with the other movement that was from outside to inside, where all the cities, all the towns, all the areas were connected to London. This is what was happening internally. Externally, world wars and the troubles that, were faced by humanity at the outset of the 20th century, they changed the life of almost everyone and left marks on the face of humanity. And human beings are connected with language, so of course the impact of the wars on other languages and on English language was very strong. Growth in importance of some of England's larger colonies was one of the results. Their eventual independence and the development of the United States increased the significance of English language. So, for the first time outside the boundaries of England, now English was spreading. It was going out to the world. Developments were taking place in industry. There was increased public interest in sports and amusement, and of course all the news and all the entertainment was available in English. All that was coming from the United States of America was again in English, so interest in English also increased. Improvements in the modes of life also contributed towards developments in vocabulary during this period. Thus, we can say that overall, the last 2 centuries offer an excellent example for us as linguists, as students of the history of English language, to observe, to see how the changing civilization, the changing cultures, the changing times have a strong impact on a language.